Hi, my name is Joe Swangati. I'm the writer and creator of the Soldier's Crest universe, and now the creator of Codename MoA. Just to give you guys a quick introduction on who I am and what I do, Soldier's Crest was published about 2 years ago, but then the publisher went out of business, so my books are no longer out there. I have a literary agent that is working on helping me get it published again. But in the meantime, I'm going to be working on this new project, codenamed MoA. So the way things are going to work with MoA is that I will be doing a Twitch live stream every Monday night to read the chapter that's going to be going up. I will upload the chapter to YouTube on Fridays. Every Tuesday, I'll be recapping, editing, and breaking down the chapter from the previous week. So that's why there wasn't one this week, because we're doing the first chapter, but starting next week we'll be recapping and breaking down chapter 1 on Tuesday nights on Twitch, and then I will be uploading that recap to YouTube on Thursdays. So Monday night we'll read the chapter, Tuesday night we'll break down the chapter from the previous week, Thursday I'll upload the recap, and Friday I'll upload the chapter reading. So this will be for chapter 1. And we'll be working on it from there. Just a quick intro and kind of a warning or just a heads up, but I am no professional as far as editing and uploading videos to YouTube and or reading books. I won't be doing any like quirky funny voices or anything like that because I'm not good at it. So the idea, though, ultimately is to start a Patreon for this project to help me pay for some more art, as well as getting some professionals to read the chapters, and then I will be re-uploading the chapters at a later date. But for now, this is how we're going to do it. This video that you're about to watch was taken from my Twitch channel that I recorded, that I basically went live and did the Monday that just passed. So I'll be editing it down and uploading it here after this little intro. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. It was a chilly Wednesday afternoon in the city of Ire, located on the western half of Novessa. Novessa, one of many inhabited planets in the Sistar galaxy, was the most similar planet to Earth that humans had discovered since expanding into space. The galaxy itself replicated that of the Milky Way galaxy with a giant sun and multiple planets. The biggest difference between them was the aforementioned inhabitants. It was common now for travelers of Earth and other galaxies to band together, explore, and create new stations on every planet. Enough to get the planet up and running, but those responsible for expansion would often never return. Novessa was one of these planets. Set up hastily and populated with those willing to stay, it was quickly abandoned afterwards, as it was one of the hardest to reach planets in the solar system. Having similar seasons to Earth was the reasoning behind the cold afternoon. Luckily for Kore, she often wore a full suit when working. She was sitting in her car, seat reclined back, her eyes closed, and a tiny earbud in her right ear attached to a small radio-like device sitting on the passenger seat. Her long black hair scrunched up behind her head, and a long braid hung down her right shoulder. We got a quad blue situation at 284 West Baker Block, requesting immediate attention from the closest guard officer. Kore opened her right eye and stared at the radio device as if it was doing the talking. A slight grin appeared on her face. A quad blue? She hit a button on the right of her chair, and it sat her back upright. "This is Guard Captain Fair, en route to the quad blue," said another voice from the radio. "Time to go." Kore hit another button on her dashboard. Cars on Novessa were created... I gotta paste that better, sorry. "Time to go." Kore hit another button on her dashboard. Cars on Novessa were created with magical technology that allowed them to float. This led to no cars needing wheels other than for luxury and looks. Kore's car touched the ground, but when she pressed the button, it immediately began to lift off. Harnessing the magical power was enough to float, but not enough to fly yet. Manufacturers were trying desperately to be the first to create a flying car on Novessa, but weren't having much luck. When Kore arrived at the address communicated on the comms, the crime scene was already taped off. Buildings on Novessa were mostly made of metal with a lot of bizarre designs protruding from the tops and sides. This building was no exception. The porch of the building extended out almost to the street, and Corey couldn't help but imagine how annoying it must be for people walking by. Porch is where the tape began, and Corey quickly stepped under it. The moment she walked through the front door, she was stopped by one of the guard officers. He put his hand out, and Corey could barely make out the man's face under the mask all standard guard officers wore. "You can't be in here, miss." Corey reached into her pocket of her suit and pulled out a tiny wallet. She flipped it open to reveal an ID. "Actually, I can be. As of yesterday, I am officially a detective that operates under permission of the guard. Signed by Guard Lieutenant Dende himself." The guard officer looked behind him at a tall man with gray hair and a gray beard. The man took one look at the commotion at the front door and sighed. "Let her in." Corey smiled at the guard posted at the door and tapped him on the chest before putting her ID away and stepping inside. She walked up to the gray-featured man. "Always happy to see you, Captain Fair." Look, don't make me regret putting in a good word with the guard for you." Captain Fair flipped through some pages on a small notepad he was holding. "You always seem to crash my investigations anyway. I figured you might as well not get me in trouble when you do so." "It's so nice being co-workers," Corey laughed as she walked past Captain Fair. "So what's the situation?" Captain Fair caught up to Corey and walked ahead of her into the next room. The room was a standard living room setup. A couch, a chair, a coffee table, and a flat-screen television with blue lines circling the outside, sitting upon a TV stand. In the middle of the floor was a dead body. Captain Fair put out his right hand to notify everyone working on the crime scene that Corey was supposed to be there. He put on a pair of glasses and held his notepad close to his face. Neighbor reported a scream and some loud banging coming from the house. Knocked on the door and didn't get an answer. When we got here, we found him like this. Quick observation shows apparent stab wounds, but surprisingly not much blood. "Quick indeed," Corey said as she squatted down beside the body. "Have you run diagnostics yet?" Corey put her finger on one of the wounds. "Can you not contaminate my crime scene?" said Captain Fair. "We're running diagnostics to figure out what type of weapon was used exactly. That might help in narrowing down the killer." "This wasn't done with a weapon," Corey stood up. "Is that Lucy? Lucy!" A young blonde-haired girl walked over to Corey and Captain Fair. She was holding a small rectangle device that was running information about the crime through a database. "Corey, I didn't know you were working on this investigation with us." "I'm officially a guard detective now." Corey flashed Lucy her ID for proof. "You'll be seeing a lot more of me now." I probably shouldn't use now twice there. We'll fix that. Lucy smiled. "Happy to hear it. Congrats." "Lucy, would you be a doll and add magic, more specifically lightning magic, to your diagnostics report?" asked Corey. Hesitant, Lucy looked at Captain Fair for approval. Captain gave her a slight nod. "Will do," said Lucy with another smile. "Why lightning?" Captain Fair put his notepad away, took off his glasses, and knelt down in a similar fashion to Corey earlier. "Simple, really." Corey walked past the body. "Those wounds aren't stab wounds. They were done with lightning magic." As she spoke, Captain Fair stood back up and joined her on the side of the room she moved to. "Whoever did it is very strong and proficient with lightning magic. These are clean cuts and..." She knelt back down and lifted the shoulder of the victim. "These cuts went straight through." "Possible with a knife or a sword," Captain Fair added. "How did you come to the lightning magic conclusion so fast?" Corey pointed down at the victim. "Check the wounds. At quick glance, the wounds look like a simple knife or sword stab, but the wounds are too jagged to be that simple. It would be cleaner, but even a concise, well-concentrated lightning strike of this caliber will leave a more rugged look and feel." Captain Fair looked around the room and Corey could see the concern on his face. "We missed that completely." "It's why you needed an official detective in the guard," Corey reminded him. She walked over to the wall parallel to the victim's body. She tapped on a spot on the wall. "This is residual lightning energy. It's small, but not invisible." "That tiny yellow dot is lightning magic?" Captain Fair wasn't the only one watching and following Corey. The entire guard force in the room working on the scene were now intently spectating. Corey hesitated as she saw everyone staring, but carried on. "Yes, a typical lightning blast of this caliber would leave black remnants as well. Whoever did this must have cleaned that up to hide the murder method." "Why would the murderer do that?" The question came from Lucy as the room continued to watch Corey work her own form of magic. "Well, there could be a few reasons." Corey pointed down at the floor of the room they were standing in. It was a carpet. Even with lightning magic doing the damage, there would still have been a ton of blood under the victim. But as you can see, there isn't any. I'm no expert on cleaning up blood, but it would not have been easy for the murderer to clean up blood this fast, especially with the neighbor calling the guard shortly after it was done. Not on carpet anyway, and not without moving the body. The mark on the wall you pointed out was definitely made from an attack in this room, though, added Captain Fair. Corey walked into the next room that was connected. It was a kitchen. I truly believe the fight began in the living room instead of ending here. Corey pointed out a second dot on the wall in the kitchen. I think the fight ended in here, though still impressive to have cleaned it all up and placed the body elsewhere before the guard arrived. It would still be easier to clean the blood off the floor we're standing on now. The killer intended to put you off the scent for their real reason of being here. Which would be something in this room, said Captain Fair as he tried to keep up. Everyone check the cabinets, look for anything suspicious. Corey opened up the closet cabinet, the closest cabinet to her, and took everything out. She then pressed against the back of the cabinet. More importantly, check the back for any hidden compartments. I think I found one, said Lucy. Corey, Captain Fair, and the other guard members walked over to her side of the kitchen. The back part of this cabinet seems to slide. Open it and give it a scan. Corey peeked over Lucy's shoulder, I'm having trouble with shoulder as well, at the device she was holding as she scanned the vacant area. Looks like it was Welton Company brand magic sources. Lucy put the device closer and ran the test again. About 3 spheres worth. Name of our buddy laying down in the other room, asked Corey. Trice Adams, said Lucy as she pulled up the man's record on the same device. Corey took a step back and folded her arms. Did he have a license for this type of magic? He did, responded Lucy. Then I think it's safe to say our culprit did not, added Captain Fair. Or, hear me out, the Welton Company did this. Corey's response caused sudden chatter between the other guard officers. It sounds crazy, but it also sounds like something they would do. Sell their product to buyers, then go in and take back the product to be sold again. Corey, a word in private, please. Before Corey could respond, Captain Fair made his way into one of the other rooms. Corey looked at the officers around her, then followed the captain. Furious that he interrupted her in front of everyone, Corey closed the door to the room they were in and walked over to a nearby window. You know it's something that would be possible. The Welton Company is always up to something shady. Captain Fair sighed and leaned his back against the door that Corey just closed. Not this again. Yes, this again. Corey turned back to face him. Everyone has turned a blind eye to the Welton Company for too long. They control magic. They are even taxing it. This is something that is a gift from the planet itself. It's a benefit we all should be celebrating together, not being limited by a company that has a strangle on it and us. And on us. Your parents went missing 2 months after working for the Welton Company. Now that you're officially working for the Guard, you can't go making accusations like that. It's way too personal for you and it makes us both look bad. Captain Fair stopped, leaning on the door, and took a few steps towards Corey. What you just did out there, it was amazing. You had all of my officers behind you and they were enthralled in what you had to say. You provided a lot of clues and evidence that can help us track down the real killer. Corey turned and looked back out the window. She did this in an effort to prevent Captain Fair from seeing the tears starting to form in her eyes. I just wanted to put all options on the table. It's not impossible to think that the Welton Company could do something like this. I agree with you. Captain Fair's words brought some comfort to Corey. But we can't go throwing this allegation around without more proof. I'll personally work with you on each case if that's what it takes to get to the bottom of your parents' disappearance. But we can't make it too public. Can't make it so public if we do this. Corey wiped a tear escaping from her right eye before turning around. I appreciate your willingness to help me through this. I'm a man of the Guard. Helping people is what I do. Finding out the truth is what you do. That fancy little ID of yours means that you're part of bringing justice to Novessa. That's now what both of us do. Captain Fair smiled. You did good today. I think we can take it from here. You should go home and take a night to think on this. Corey said nothing as she left the room and made her way back to her car. The other guard officers stared at her as she walked out, but she could hear Captain Fair directing their attention to something else. Car ride home was quiet. She didn't put the radio on and she hardly acknowledged her surroundings. Her parents went missing shortly after starting to work for the Welton Company, and she was obsessed with getting to the bottom of it. Corey's house was nothing special. The fancy designs that other people would put on their houses to stand out were not really her style. From the outside, her house was normal looking and rather small. The inside was very neat and basic as well. The only standout from the property was the backyard, which was bigger than average. She walked up to her front door and removed a small rectangle device, similar to the one Lucy was using, but much smaller. A simple click of a button caused the device to expand and create a floating image of Corey on a keycard. Corey slipped the card into a slit next to the door, and a click noise followed. After closing the door, Corey put her keys down and looked at the ceiling. She took a long, deep sigh. There's my official detective of the Guard, Rumi. Audra was in the other room when she yelled the words, her voice interrupting Corey's unnecessarily long sigh. Corey heard Audra enter the room, but continued to keep her eyes closed. She could feel Audra getting closer. Was the first day really that bad? Bad enough to freeze you in time and disappointment? Corey opened her eyes, but remained with her face toward the ceiling. Her eyes slowly peeked over at Audra. She had her long brown hair pushed back by a hairband. Corey opened her eyes, but remained with her face toward the ceiling. Her eyes slowly peeked over at Audra. She had her long brown hair pushed back by a hairband, an apron on that was covered in powder, black shorts, and a pink t-shirt. She wasn't wearing any socks and was also wearing no makeup. Corey was always jealous of Audra's natural beauty, more so when they were younger. Got to go to my first assignment with an ID, Corey said as she moved into a regular standing position. The moment she transitioned to normalcy, Audra hugged her, powder and all. I am so proud of you. Corey tried to pry her off, but Audra just nuzzled herself into Corey's shoulder. All right, Corey finally freed herself. You got powder all over my suit. You have like 50 suits in your closet. That's all you wear. Audra lifted her right foot as a small, fluffy creature ran around her and started to do some nuzzling of its own on Corey's leg. Did I use the wrong "it's" here? I guess so. I should know that. Zip is proud of you too. Hard to stay sad when this little guy greets you. Corey picked Zip up and smiled. Mama 1 had a rough day at work, kiddo. Corey carried Zip and put him on a nearby couch. She sat down and put her head back again. Her long black hair hung down the back of it. She pushed herself up onto her tippy toes before opening her eyes again. While upside down, she could see Audra back in the kitchen and was visible from which was visible from their living room. What are you making? Remember those books I found in the library about Earth? Corey nodded as best she could while upside down on the couch. Audra continued, I found a whole bunch of crazy recipes in those. This one is for brownies. I'm curious to see how people from Earth make them compared to people on Novessa. Probably less artificial magic flavoring. Corey closed her eyes again. She could hear Audra making a lot of noise behind her before opening their oven and closing it. Audra took off the apron and joined Corey. Corey slid down and sat on the couch like a normal person would. So, do you want to talk about your day or not? When Corey looked at Audra, she was presenting a plate of food. What are those? Earth cupcakes. Audra grabbed one for herself as Corey also took one. Corey smelled it and it smelled good. How many baked goods are you making exactly? You're going to make us both fat. Thanks to you, we eat junk like once a year. Audra took off the cupcake holder and took a bite. Her eyes rolled back in her head as she spoke with her mouth full. Oh my God. Corey shrugged and followed Audra's method of removing the holder first before taking a bite. Wow, she said with a mouthful as well. This is really good. Great. Audra put the rest of the plate down. Now that I've sweetened you up with sweets, what's going on with you? I went to one of Captain Fair's assignments as I normally do, said Corey. I'm sure he was thrilled, Audra laughed. I think he's just used to it by now. Corey smiled too as Zip hopped up and sat between them. Audra leaned forward and grabbed a cupcake for Zip and let him nibble on it while she listened to Corey. It was a murder scene, but the guard thought it was with a knife or a sword. It was with lightning magic. Turns out this person bought magic spheres from the Welton Company and the person who killed him took them. You think the person who did the murder found out and just wanted the magic? It would make sense with how tight the Welton Company is being about giving out magic. I think it's a lot deeper than that. Corey ran her fingers through Zip's fluffy exterior. I think the Welton Company sold the spheres to this man, took his money, then murdered him and took the spheres back so they can sell them again. Pretty bold claim, but definitely something they would do, said Audra. She let go of the cupcake and let Zip have his way with it. What did Fair say? Captain Fair wasn't crazy that I said what I said in front of the other guard people working there. But he said he's willing to help me figure out what happened to my parents. Corey leaned forward and grabbed the remote for the TV off the table. Speaking of, isn't the Welton Company on the Barris show today? Are they? You think Mr. Welton will actually show up? Audra put her feet up as Corey turned the TV on. Doubtful. He never shows up to these things. No one has seen him in years. Corey changed to the channel the Barris show is on. Barris was standing up doing his monologue. The veteran TV host had been hosting his self-named TV show for over 30 years. The most popular evening talk show ever made on the western half of Novessa. It often balanced the news and current trends due to the time of day that it aired. The only thing more fake than West Leader Falco's teeth are West Leader Falco's speeches. The crowd laughed and Barris gave them time to do so before continuing. The guy spent 20 minutes talking about how magic is used more for fun than for everyday needs. I honestly can't tell if his speeches are written by his 4-year-old daughter or his 10-year-old son. Hilarious. Corey rolled her eyes as the crowd on the TV laughed with Barris. In his defense, West Leader Falco is kind of stupid, Audra laughed. I think I did enough talking for now, said Barris. The way he hesitated implied that this was a normal thing he would do to prompt the crowd. He lifted his arms, then looked behind him. "Chair, please!" he yelled as the crowd yelled it with him. Two large security guards came out from a curtain behind him. One was wheeling a chair, and the other held a small device that he handed Barris. Normally, I would have one of my security guys roll me to my desk, but I figure since we have the Welton Company on today, we might as well show off one of their new products. "Are they really trying to sell products even on the Barris show?" asked Corey. "Don't they make enough money from taxing magic?" Audra folded her arms, not to mention all the commercials. Barris pressed the button he was holding and a small portal opened up behind him. He pushed his chair back with his feet and slid through the portal. After a few seconds of silence, Barris reappeared in front of his desk. He used his hands to steady himself as he pulled himself to it. The portal behind him closed and the crowd gasped at his arrival, then cheered. You're probably at home wondering, how do I get my hands on one of these? One of those. It should probably be one of these, right? Well, I guess those works too. Well, here to talk about this brand new product, please welcome to the Barris show, Raisha and the Gargoyle. A large curtain set up next to where Barris sits opened on one side. A large man wearing a gray suit stepped out from behind it. The crowd erupted at the sight of him. The representatives of the Welton Company were basically celebrities on the western half of Novessa. On his face was a gray mask that clung to his face with no strap or back. The mask was reminiscent of a statue of a man's face, no expression or pupils. The man pulled the curtain further to the side to allow Raisha to emerge. When he did so, the crowd caught a glimpse of the back of his head, which was short-styled gray hair. Raisha was the gargoyle's opposite in almost every way. She wore a black suit, similar to the one Corey wears, and had very long orange hair with white streaks. A similar mask was on her face, though this mask allowed Raisha to show her emotions. The mask itself was white with orange and black designs on it. The color of her eyes matched her hair, and the mouth of the mask was a series of white teeth that blended into the rest of the mask when she wasn't speaking or smiling. The way the crowd cheered for the gargoyle's arrival paled in comparison to the cheers Raisha received when she stepped out. The orange-haired spokesperson of the Welton Company was one of the most known and well-respected members. She was often cited at and leading charity events. In charge of most public speaking events for the Welton Company, and I probably need a better transition there. She was in charge of most public speaking events for the Welton Company, and she was the most interactive with the people of Novessa. The gargoyle stood with his arms folded behind her as she worked the crowd. She raised her hands to make them cheer louder, then reached into the pocket of her suit to pull out the same device that Barris just used. She waved it around and held it in the palm of her hand to show everyone it was the same, then clicked a button that opened a portal behind the gargoyle. She shimmied her way over to him as he looked from side to side. She crossed her arms in a similar fashion to the gargoyle, then leaned on his statuesque physique. The size of Raisha could never move the gargoyle's massive frame, but they pretended it did, and the gargoyle went through the portal Raisha opened, and she clicked a button to make it disappear. The sharp teeth of her mask formed a big smile as the crowd laughed. She joined Barris at his desk, bowed once more for the crowd, and then turned to face Barris, who was now standing to greet her. The two shook hands, and Raisha sat down on a couch set up next to Barris's desk. "What an entrance!" Barris exclaimed, and the crowd responded in kind. "People of Novessa really do love you. I couldn't help but notice you got rid of your comrade there." Raisha looked where the gargoyle used to be, then at the crowd, and then back to Barris. "It's fine. He's fine. He wasn't going to talk much anyway." The crowd and Barris laughed at her response. When Raisha spoke, everyone listened. Despite the scary look of her mask, her voice was very soothing and welcoming. "Nifty little gadget, isn't it?" Barris admired the one he used to get to his desk. Indeed, I'm sure everyone in the crowd and everyone at home is wondering how they could get their hands on such a device. These will be available to the public in late November. Raisha put hers in her pocket. "We're still trying to decide on a fair price. The item will teleport you from room to room, but won't be able to teleport you from home to your job. Not yet, anyway." Definitely something to look forward to. Barris showed the device off to the crowd once more by holding it up, then placed it down on his desk. "It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Raisha. Please, tell us what's new with you and the Welton Company, besides revolutionary teleporters." The Welton Company has been hard at work on a major breakthrough project. Raisha's words interrupted Barris, who was trying to drink from a mug. "Yet another project?" Barris asked the question, then finished taking his drink. "The Welton Company is always working on something," Raisha reminded him. "This one in particular is our biggest project yet. It involves the Edge." Raisha's words were met with no noise from the crowd. Instead, everyone just stared at one another until Barris broke the silence. You mean the place where Western Novessa meets Eastern Novessa? The two sides are split by impenetrable magic. Raisha smiled with her sharp teeth before standing up. We thought so too, she said to Barris, then put her two hands together as if she was clapping, then turned them sideways. When she split her hands apart and raised them, two tiny devices on the sleeve of her suit activated and revealed a floating screen. This is a diagram of the edge as we know it. The eastern half of Novessa is grayed out due to our lack of knowledge of it. Varys shifted uneasily in his chair as the tension among the crowd matched his own. The Welton Company has found a way through the barrier, then. More specifically, Mr. Welton himself has found a way. The screen continued to float in front of the crowd as Raisha stood on the far side of it. Here you can see where we are, the western half. She pointed to it as she spoke. A massive heat of magic dwells in the actual ground itself beneath us that we have learned to harvest and utilize. Mr. Welton is under the impression that a similar reservoir of magic lies on the eastern half as well. Barris shook his head and laughed. Getting our hands on another large portion of magic like that could be game-changing for our planet and its development, but it doesn't solve the issue that we can't cross the edge. That's the common thought process, the way I thought about the situation as well. Raisha pressed another button on her sleeve, and the picture on the screen changed to a more close-up picture of the edge. Mr. Welton says that the barrier we can't cross to get to the eastern half is created by the magic from our half pushing up against the magic of the eastern half. So what is his plan to get through? Barris took another drink. Each question that he asked and each explanation that Raisha gave helped calm the crowd around them. By creating a device that can push aside the magical energy of the barrier, we would be able to make a hole big enough to pass through. Her words caused a chattering among the crowd. Barris spoke louder to help quiet them. Even if the barrier were to drop, we have no way of physically crossing the gap between the two halves. When was the last time any of you saw Mr. Welton out in the public eye? It's been years, Barris answered on behalf of everyone, because he has been working with the most intelligent minds on the western half of Novessa to prepare for this momentous occasion. I was about to throw like 3 extra letters in there, and it would not have been good. Another press of the sleeve button revealed a picture of the barrier with a large hole in it and a bridge connecting the two halves. Mr. Welton calls our most ambitious project yet the Ether Expansion. Very ambitious, added Barris. Raisha closed the floating screen with the final push of the button on her sleeve. This should be then set. Raisha closed the floating screen with a final push of the button on her sleeve, then sat back down next to Barris. You don't have faith that the Welton Company can do this? Novessa was founded many years ago, way before any of us were born, and abandoned here by the humans and aliens responsible for expansion. They left us without the means to access the other half of our planet. Barris was now addressing the crowd instead of looking at Raisha. Am I the only one afraid that they did this for a reason? Am I the only one who thinks they kept us separate from the eastern half because whatever is on the other side of that barrier may not be as friendly as we are? You're willing to bury an opportunity for growth and the chance to achieve new magical heights that may allow us to expand into the universe ourselves because you're afraid? Raisha laughed. Fear brings the death of many a great idea, while the fearless are rewarded. The crowd clapped as Raisha finished her words, a reaction even she was not prepared for. Barris looked out at the crowd. Sweat began to form on his brow, and he bit his lip. It would appear the crowd is in agreement with you. Maybe expansion is the key to bringing the western half of Novessa new prosperity. Mr. Welton is no fool. Raisha adjusted her tie. If anyone can bring the two halves of Novessa together, he is the one. Barris held his hand out as if presenting Raisha. Strong words from a strong woman. A fearless woman, Raisha reminded him with a sharp teeth smile. Barris cleared his throat. Indeed, that is all the time we have for today. I want to thank the Gargoyle, Lady Raisha, and the rest of the Welton Company for sponsoring this show. For more news, including more information on the Ether expansion as it develops, please check out the Barris Show on the web and every night on your local stations.